Welcome to day 7 of the book, The Absolute Law of Karma, written by Param Pujya Gurudev Pandit Shri Ram Sharma Acharya. In the last audio, we read about how it is very important while forming a karma that number 1, the intention or motive behind that karma is counted, and the degree of emotional involvement or the reason with which that karma is being done or said is what counts the most. Let's read further. In Divine Jurisprudence, there is significant clause for treating each individual independently according to the state of the purity of the soul. The laws of spirituality hold that each soul is perpetually in the process of progressive evaluation, that is, purification through the course of successive cycles of birth and death. Now, this sentence is actually based on the fundamental law of many lives, which means that we have a soul which never dies, but it is the body that dies, and we again get reincarnated with a new body in another life cycle. So this is a very fundamental principle in Sanatana Dharma, wherein we do not consider that the soul ever dies. And hence, through the successive cycles of birth and death, there is a progressive evolution that takes place by purification of that soul in different situations and different circumstances through these lives of the soul. Just like when we are small kids and when we start going to school, every year we are evaluated, and based on that evaluation we get to go to the next class. So there is a progressive evaluation and a progressive evolution of the child that takes place through these standards of classes based on the knowledge that he has acquired. Similarly, in the astral world, our soul is continuously evaluated for progressive evolution to reach higher stages of consciousness and increased self-awareness so as to become one with the Supreme Power. Every Atma is longing to get united with the Paramatma. That means at each successive stage, the soul acquires greater purity and is given a body in the species of higher consciousness. That means increased wisdom. The birth as a human being is believed to be the highest phase of conscious evolution on earth, before liberation from the cycles of birth and death. We all know that the human species on this earth is the most evolved amongst all the species, and therefore we must consider this time in this human life as extremely precious, because it is the highest phase of conscious evolution. That is the wisdom, the pragya, the ritambara, the vivek, or the ability to differentiate between what is good and bad to do or what is good and bad to say is the biggest power that human species have been granted, and hence it is called as the most evolved state. It is also considered the last state before the liberation from the cycles of birth and death, which is moksha. That once when the Atma has been united with the Paramatma, or when it has crossed all stages of birth and death and crossed all phases of evaluation with flying colors, then it is free from the cycles of birth and death, and that is called moksha, or even known as the end of all sufferings, because after all, the world is considered to be the source of all sufferings and also the reason for all desires, and that is why it has been also known as Maya, or an illusion in which we are there for some time before we go to our original home. that is where the home where the soul belongs to. Let's read further. The rewards and punishments of heaven and hell depend on the state of consciousness, that is, the wisdom of the being. If accused of bribery, a peon, a clerk, and a juror will receive 3 different types of punishment. The peon may be acquitted after a serious reprimand. The clerk may be temporarily suspended from the service. But having entrusted the great responsibility, the juror cannot escape dismissal. So here Gurudev is giving one more example of the fact that with greater power lies greater responsibility. Hence, if a peon does a theft in the bank where he is working, he will just be given a serious reprimand, or he will just be scolded and given a warning. If a clerk does that, he will be maybe temporarily suspended from his job, but anyway will be probably called back. But if it's the bank manager who does the theft in a bank, then it is going to be a very serious kind of sin, and he would probably be dismissed permanently. Take one more example. A primitive tribesman hunts and kills animals for his daily meal. On the other hand, a priest preaching virtues of non-violence secretly consumes non-vegetarian food. In Divine Jurisprudence, the priest will add greater sin to his account than the tribesman. Here, the states of awareness and morality are being considered for evaluation of the merit or demerit of the deed. As the soul becomes more evolved with acquisition of greater wisdom and morality, the inner conscience, which is the Antah-Chetna, becomes more and more awakened and refined. Now again, eating of non-vegetarian food. I am sure if you are someone who is listening to this audio and who eats non-vegetarian food, I am sorry for this reference, but it is not recommended to do so in our Sanatana Dharma, because we consider animals as also living beings who have a soul. They are just in lower states of consciousness than the human species, but they also are living beings, and hence it is a crime to kill them for food, especially when there are other very readily available sources of food. Therefore, someone who is aware of the fact that they too are living, breathing souls is going to kill them and eat them, compared to a tribal person who does not understand the science of killing these animals and then eating them for food, will be adding a greater amount of karmic indebtedness than against a tribal man. Hence it is said that if you are aware and still you are doing something wrong, or supposedly wrong, which is wrong in the divine jurisprudence, then you add more demerit to your account. And before moving on, I would quickly like to touch upon why eating non-vegetarian food is prohibited, or I should rather rephrase it, why only eating vegetarian food is recommended in Sanatana Dharma. This is because we consider every plant or animal having prana tattva, which is the vital life force. In our Sanatana Dharma, we consider that every living being, whether it's a plant, whether it's an animal, or whether it's a human being, they have a vital life force called the prana shakti, which is the very reason why we are alive. So what is the difference between me as someone who is alive and speaking and breathing and a dead body? It is only the breath that I can take in and out, which a dead body cannot do. And that breath is known as the vital life force, or the prana, or the prana shakti. And because of this breath has been coined the term pranayama also, which is now very much modernized and westernized, and it's known as the breath work or synchronized cardiac breathing or breath regulation. But yeah, coming back to the topic, so we consider that all the plants and animals also have this vital life force, which is nothing but the cosmic energy or the energy from the divine. And this, if killed, or if you have ever seen the face of an animal that is seeing its fellow mates getting killed, you can see how much fear, despair and sadness has increased in their cells or in their very prana. And this is what you actually eat when you eat the dead animals. So and also, if you have read the Gita, you know that the cow is considered as the most holy animal. So we have always revered and been worshipping all sorts of life in all its forms. We can also look at it another way, that is, food is about the physical existence. So whatever we eat should be passing through our system with minimum resistance, and we should be able to digest and make that food as a part of our own system with minimum resistance, or it should be able to integrate with our body very, very smoothly. Therefore, we should eat those things that have the least complex genetic code, or you can say which are further away, which are farthest from us in the evolution chain. Therefore, if we eat other mammals who are very, very close to us in the evolution chain, we will not be able to integrate or incorporate their genetic code or their complex memory codes into our body as simply as we would do of that of a plant. Or in other words, if we eat animals which are very close to us in the evolution chain, we will not be able to break them down in our body fully, and therefore a part of it gets broken down and digested, but a part of it remains and gets in and stays in our body in the very form that it existed originally, and thereby it would eventually find expression within us, which is actually what is happening. People are now getting more angry, more irritated very easily. They are exhibiting more animal-like behavior than they were, say, 500 or 1,000 years ago. And this is the very principle on which Ayurveda also works. Tamasic bhojan, Rajasic bhojan and Sattvic bhojan. So Sattvic bhojan has all the fruits and vegetables, most of them, and Tamasic has food like animal meat and alcohol and other things that actually do not get broken down by our body and thereby find expression inside us, because these have more complex memory codes than our body is designed to digest and break down. It can also be understood from the fact that the physical design of our body is such that anything that moves from our stomach to the intestines within 1 or 2 hours is good for us to eat, or anything that stays in our stomach for more than 4, 5, 6 hours before it moves down for further digestion into the intestine is not so good for the body in scientific terms. Okay, we stop here for today. Thank you everyone for listening in. Thank you. Pranam.
हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक कीजिए ताकि आने वाली सभी वीडियो की नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत थैंक यू।